Hello, my name is Matthew, and I thought I would do the philosophy of reading tag. It's a new original tag which has been making its rounds. I've been seeing a lot of great videos and responses to this tag. It was created by a booktube channel, a booktuber who's new to me. It's Brandon's Bookshelf, and I'll leave. I've been watching some of his videos, and it's great. It's definitely worth checking out and subscribing. And it's just a great set of questions. I don't often do very many tags. I feel like recently I haven't done very many tags, and one of the main reasons is I don't have extra devices, and so in order to do a tag, I have to handwrite all the questions out. And it was such a great list of questions that I wrote them out, and I thought it would be fun to go through. So we'll just start. Uh, Question number one: what's most important? A good character, plot, or message? And the one of the most important parts of the quality of a writer is actually that authorial voice, the style of the writer, the mindset of the writer, how they describe characters or how they tell a story. I get much more intrigued with how it's done, the kind of personal quality of the writer's sensibilities, their sense of humor, their sense of tragedy or quirkiness, the thing that makes the writer seem like an individual. I find to be very important. When I read this question and heard other responses, one of the thoughts that I had was Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. It's a play, and it's a story of it's a play about these two vagabonds waiting for somebody to show up, and you have a whole first act, and then you have a whole second act while they're waiting, and nothing happens. That's the whole play, and it could be just so tedious or pompous, bo- boring, or just awful. And instead, you get a feeling of what Samuel Beckett thinks is absurd and funny and sad. Um, these great. This is a story of all character, no plot. Um, we have these great moments like it's Vladimir and Estragon, and one of them says to the other, where did you sleep last night? And the other one responds and says, I slept in a ditch. And then he exclaims, where did you find a ditch? And it's just ridiculous. And there's something about the quality of just spending time with an author that feels authentic, that I really look for. There's other questions that come up about what makes a good book, and authenticity is one of the main qualities that I look for. But question number two: should one read books about ideas or opinions they disagree with? And yes, of course, I suppose. Um, I also think that there's so many things in the world, so many ideas and so many opinions that the majority I either have no clue about or am really indifferent about. And this kind of question, or the thought process that would be presented with a question like this, I find had mostly occurred with me by reading periodicals, reading the New York Review of Books or London Review of Books, where you open up to the table of contents and you just really know nothing. And there will be articles on different topics or subjects, and the amount of times that I would start reading something thinking like, I don't know anything about this, and then it's fascinating, and I'll just get roped in, going like, well, this is a book about um, boating or fishing or cooking or tapestries or whatever the subject is that I don't really care one way or another. And the feeling of realizing that you're curious, let alone about learning about someone else's viewpoint, or that there's a different side of the coin and all that. But I'd say the majority of my reading, when it comes to whatever my opinions are, it's usually the majority of the time it's opinions that I don't have one way or another, and I get a lot of satisfaction from learning something. Going like, wow, that really is interesting, or I had no idea. I think it's great. Question number 3: as tech advances, what do you think will be the role of books? And I've had an e-reader now for a year and a half or 2 years, something like that. And the reading experience, when I have the book and I'm sitting down, just reading the words on the page, the e-reader just feels superior. All of the distractions are gone. I'm not worried about light hitting the page. I can control the size of the font, so the actual letters will be at a comfortable size for my eyes. I don't have to deal with bookmarks. When I'm reading in bed and Andy or Daphne, one of my cats, is laying next to me, I don't have to bother them with flipping the page, getting them all in a fuss. It's lovely. Books, though, still are a more dependable, reliable, um, sturdy thing that I don't see them going anywhere. I mentioned I do feel the actual act of reading on an e-reader is just more comfortable and more pleasurable. I do find it's not always the most reliable way of reading. When I'm searching around, if there's a book on my shelf and I think, well, let me see, it's an old classic, it's public domain. I'll just download a free copy. That way I can enjoy that reading experience that I like so much on the e-reader. And there's been quite a few times now in the past year and a half, 2 years, where the text will be full of typos or have errors, or something just feels wrong in one way or another, which absolutely ruins the experience, because that contract, I'm reading a book written by somebody else, and I want to be reading the thing that they wrote, or if it was translated, I want to read what the translator wrote. And when you start feeling suspicious um, the whole house falls down. You start feeling like this isn't the book. So I don't think books are going anywhere. I do think publishers um, are going to have a critical role in the advancement of uh, ebooks as far as selling a reliable, credible product. You know, these are the words that Walt Whitman wrote. This is a translation by Flaubert by this translator. I've gotten e-copies of books but that were translated that didn't even have the translator identified, which just feels suspicious, and I don't want to have feelings of suspicion when I'm reading. So I don't think books are going anywhere, and ebooks, for all the great things about them, it's still uncharted territory. Things that need to be buttoned up. Question number 4: how important are summaries, review, and art in your book choosing? I used to subscribe to the New York Review of Books and the London Review of Books, and I did find a lot of new recommendations and suggestions. I would say that as far as like summarizing reviews, the majority of books that come in on my radar for a long time were through conversation. My old friend Bob, my friend Tony, Tony's wife Denise, just talking about a book, listening to Bob, my old friend Bob, who is incredibly well read, a caustic, biting, satirical, funny person. Listening to him to like tell a story, like listening to him talk about David Copperfield, and going at the end of it, going, I gotta read this book. This sounds great. I don't quite get that feeling with book reviews as much, but yeah, I think hearing the summary of a book could just grab you. Should one ever skim or scan a book? And I guess as far as it goes, anyone can do whatever they would like. I know personally, I just can't. I can't do it. I don't have whatever mental faculty allows someone to skim a book and retain any sort of information or find any enjoyment out of that practice. Um, I don't ever do it. If I just skim through a book, it doesn't mean anything to me. I didn't capture any of the sentiments or whatever was going on the page. I don't glean anything out of it. So I don't do it. Maybe if I was able to do that, I would do it for some reason, but I don't. Should reading always be enjoyable? I think if you're reading for enjoyment, it should always be enjoyable. Is it important to be well read? For me, the more I've read over the course of close to 20 years of reading fairly consistently every day, and having become a better reader as a result of that, the more I've read, the more enjoyable reading is. as an experience, as an activity. It's easier, and I just have like this backlog of stuff that I know, allusions and references, um, certain types of um, styles, realizing that this is like a hackneyed plot or a stereotypical kind of character, or um, noticing like, well, okay, that's like some kind of plot hole that's used a lot, and just knowing more about books um, just makes it more enjoyable, and reading widely um, makes it more enjoyable. So um, I think it's one of those kinds of questions that's hard to pin down exactly why someone might want to be well read, because you don't want to be a snob about it. But um, being well read um, is a constant activity that constantly rewards. So, what is your book buying process? I remember in my early 20s, there used to be a bookstore called Borders. There were a handful of these stores. I think they're out of business now. And they had these great deals. And it would be something like every time you buy a book, you'll get a coupon on the receipt, and it'll say, um, if you spend $20 or if you spend $30, you'll get like 30% off or 40% off. It was a really big discount. And for the longest time, I would go uh, have my receipt from the previous book purchase, and I'd be in the bookstore collecting these books and adding up in my head, like, am I hitting that mark? Um, am I picking up a book that I really don't want, but I'm just trying to get a discount? And I would stress and strain over it. I would spend all this time at the bookstore looking at the books, and uh, looking back on it, it was really fun. I just had this like really warm feeling about all the time I was like pulling my hair out, um, looking at the coupon, looking at the books. Um, the past like year or two, I really don't buy very many um, books. Like one or two, three or four a month. Um, Hardly ever every month. Um, so I order books online. It's usually Amazon, just because it's so um, convenient. But that's my now that's my book buying process. Like, for whatever reason, something lands on my radar, um, and I check to see. Um, I try to make a decision. Like, do I want a physical copy? Do I want to get the e copy? Can I rely on the e copy? And then um, make a decision. Um, what is your reading process? Maybe that means like my reading routine. I used to read every morning, first thing in the morning. For the longest time, I would read poetry. Um, During that time, it was a lot of the Romantics, reading John Keats and Shelley, William Wordsworth, Byron, Coleridge. Uh, Recently, I wake up very, very early, and I go to work very, very early, and I do sort of wake up in a rush and a huff, and out the door I go. I also get home early, so um, my reading routine um, is very much settling in, having some time in the afternoon, um, and then a second round of bedtime reading, reading until I fall asleep. And I always read to fall asleep. Not not to fall asleep, but I'll read until it's time for bed. Uh, I don't keep my phone in the bedroom. It's on the other side of the house. So uh, I don't lay awake at night getting distracted by my phone. It just sounds awful. Um, how do you use what you read? And I really, I would really love to, at some point, find some practical, marketable way of uh, using all this stuff that I've read in a way that uh, is evidently useful in my life. I do know I'm richer for it, so the way that I think um, is hugely influenced by the books that I've read. Not in any way that I can pin down a certain book, like the idea that I learned some big life lesson from um, a poem or anything like that. But um, um, the books that I've read are part of who I am, and I use that every day. So, um, if you could download a book to your brain, would you still read? And so, I have a terrible memory. I just have this awful memory. I feel like I can't ever remember anything or just recollect it right at the right moment. Um, but still, there are poems and there are lines that I know by heart, not from memorizing, but from reading them. And I could recite whole lines of things, and in a way, it's like having it downloaded into your brain. And for those kinds of poems, um, they are, because the idea is, if it was downloaded in your brain, would you still bother um, reading it? And it's so much more enjoyable reading something that you've loved so much that you know it by heart. So I would, of course, still read if there was a bug in my brain. Uh, what are your views on rereading a book? It's one of my absolute favorite activities, one of my favorite subset of reading activities. And it's such a great way of um, solidifying an opinion on a book. To reread a book once or multiple times and find that the book gets better or it's changed, find something new, uh, it really strengthens my opinion of the quality of the book. Um, if there was a book that you enjoyed and you pick it up again for whatever reason, and you think to yourself like, well, I know these characters, I know the story, I know where it's going, um, and you're kind of bored. It means something to me. I learned something about what my feelings of that book that I um, wouldn't have thought of without rereading. So it's important to me. What makes a good book? I mentioned earlier authenticity. So so many of my favorite writers are also like these quirky, eccentric writers. I love reading Proust, but Proust was a nut, and he wrote this big, long, overblown um, series of books, or one giant book, or whatever he did. It's so self-involved. Uh, long sentences about somebody just over analyzing every little thing, and on it goes. And to me, like, some of the magic about that is it. I feel like I kind of know some aspects of Proust as a person. Um, so a part of him comes through the book, and I believe it. So that style um, just sort of marries with my idea of the person, and it feels genuine. Gautier, Theophile Gautier, with that really purple, ornate, high flung, beautiful prose. I can imagine him roaring out those beautiful French sentences in those saloons at the time, and seeing a crowd of people being mesmerized by this person who can just seemingly pull these outrageous words out of thin air, and in a way that is unique. No one else could do it. Samuel Beckett with these like really sparse, minimalistic, absurd, dreary stories. It seems like it's part of his sense of humor. So, books that I love, books that I think are great, I feel like the author is just giving 100% into the book, a part of themselves, at least in the sensibility, the style, the way that the story is being told, um, which is a really good lead into the next question of what makes a bad book. And that's the feeling of even being a made up story, if it feels artificial, or if the author had, if it feels like the author had some motive outside of or contradicts what's in the page, and you start thinking like, well, what is this person getting at? Um, and I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. Of course, if it's poorly written, I don't quite think that's what we're talking about. But um, if I think that there's some kind of shenanigans going on, I do lose interest. How do you feel about not finishing a book? Um, I don't have a feeling one way or another. I like the idea of finishing books. I like the idea of finishing books that I like. I'm not I'm not too proud to stop reading if I'm not enjoying something, or if I just get distracted. If something else comes along that I want to read, then I'll read that, and if I don't pick it up again, um, then that's it. Um, of course, it's kind of been mentioned before, and it's an obvious uh, part of not finishing a book, which also means you haven't read the book. So it's kind of self-evident, but um, question number 16. Should the author's personal life matter at all? And it shouldn't. I think the moral dilemma um, comes to its height when we're talking about living authors. Um, books are coming out, they're making money. There's all the now we kind of talk about cancel culture, and people have a very easy outlet to make bad decisions and shout out uh, insensitive or hurtful opinions and all that. But as far as it goes, the majority of the writers that I enjoy, I don't know anything about their life aside from their works. So um, to me, that's pretty clear. It's really a matter of just the words on the page. Um, if you could read only one genre for the rest of time, what would it be? And I'd like to have a really good answer. Like I'd like poetry, reading all those romantics, reading Yeats, getting to read Homer. But it's not the answer. It would just be fiction. Um, it's the majority of my reading. It's what I enjoy. I'd be missing a lot, and as soon as it was off the table, I'd be missing it a whole lot more. Um, do you ever read a book without knowing anything about it? I'd sup- no. Um, I think it would be a very strange feeling to have someone hand you a book with a blank cover, and you don't know if it's a memoir or history or a novel. What author, genres, series, or culture can you just not get into, and why? I don't really read series, like fantasy series or anything like that. Um, there are authors that just kind of grate me for no reason. Um, Jane Austen comes to mind. It's an author that I'm like reluctant to read because I want to enjoy Jane Austen and I don't want to keep reading read books that I have bad experiences with, um, and just really not like her because I don't want that feeling. Do you think everyone should read? Yes. There's the tags. It's a great tag. I'll leave a link to um, Bryn Bookshelf's original video and all that. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care. Bye.